So as you've already heard, I have been serving in southern Mexico as a global mission intern for Global Ministries. Global Ministries is the combined overseas ministries of both the United Church of Christ denomination and the Disciples of Christ denomination. About 50 years ago, they came together and realized, we're both working in the same places all over the world doing similar work. Why don't we work together so we can send more people to more places in the world? And so Global Ministries was born from that, and they worked together to send people all over the world. We partner with organizations and churches to create justice, reconciliation, and peace. From hospitals in India, to teaching English in China, to social work organizations in Sierra Leone, and to children's rights organizations in Mexico, where I have been working. Global Ministries walks with the people of the world to share God's love. So when this church donates to Global Ministries or to One Great Hour of Sharing, you are directly supporting this work. So thank you again for all of that support that you have given me. I worked for an organization called Melel Jojobal, which means true light in one of the indigenous languages that is still spoken in Chiapas, Mexico. We empower young children and young adults from ages 0 to 20 to fight for their rights as children and as human beings. We run an early childhood development center where babies aged 0 to 4 can come during the day so that their mothers can go work. Each of these children that comes to our offices receives 3 meals a day, as well as nap time, play time, and educational activities. We also work with children in the markets, as you heard, from ages 5 to 13. And we teach them about their rights, because even though they are working in the markets, they also have the right to go to school, and they have the right to earn money for the work that they're doing. And I spent most of my time working with teenagers. I really like working with teenagers, ages 13 to 20. So we would go to local schools and teach workshops about life planning skills, living without violence, drug and alcohol abuse prevention, and lots of other things too. So in essence, we worked to restore dignity. But what is dignity? And why does it need to be restored? The dictionary definition of dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect, a sense of pride in one's self-respect. In Luke 15, Jesus tells 2 stories about people who have lost something and are so excited about finding it again that they decide to celebrate with their neighbors and their coworkers and their friends. They invite everybody together. They prepare food, they set the table, they sit down together, and then they feast. I don't know about you, but when I lose a $50 bill and finally find it again, I am in no hurry to spend it on anything. I'm going to stick it in another pocket, lose it for another couple of months. It's like a way of saving money, right? But I especially don't want to spend it on a dinner party that's probably going to end up costing more than $50 out in the end. So what is Jesus trying to tell us? Why is it so important that the shepherd and the woman invited people to come celebrate with them? I believe it has to do with dignity. The woman and the shepherd were so pleased with themselves, so proud that they had accomplished something important, that they wanted to share with everyone they knew. They lost something, and then each of them found it themselves. I found it. I found that sheep that was lost. I feel the same way when I put something in my purse, and then I think, I probably won't use this, but maybe it'll come in handy someday. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, yeah, I put that in my purse, this is great. It's like, it helps me to understand that I know myself and take pride that I can do things that I need to do. So throughout the Gospels, we are shown that Jesus works to restore dignity. Jesus helps people to realize that they have things to be proud of in their lives. Restoring dignity is about supporting people to believe in their own self-worth. How many of you were the first person in your family to go to college? Anyone? Maybe a few? Or maybe your parent was the first person in your family to go to college. Or maybe you have a sibling that has gone to college, or a child that is now thinking about going to college. Do you remember what the process was like? How did you prepare for college? How did you help your child prepare for college? Did you choose a school close to home? Did you choose a school far from home? Did you have to work while in college? Or Or maybe you had to think about how you were going to pay for everything and take out loans and think about the implications of that. I remember when I was applying for college, it was so confusing. You have to take the test, and then you have to fill out the papers and write the applications and fill out the aid applications, everything. There's so much to do. And it can be really complicated. And especially if you don't have someone in your family who's already gone through that, it can be really hard knowing what to do. Now I want you to imagine that you are the third daughter in a family of 6 daughters. Neither of your parents finished high school. Your parents' native language is not what they speak in your school. Your older sister wanted to go to college, but your parents said no, because she needed to stay home and help in the family store and take care of her younger sisters. This is Jimena's story. So in Mexico, instead of taking the ACT or the SAT before college, you have to take a specific entrance exam for every single university you want to even apply to. So if you want to go to Mizzou Columbia, you have to take Mizzou Columbia's entrance exam. If you want to also apply to Mizzou Springfield, you have to take Mizzou Springfield's entrance exam. One exam for every single university you're thinking about applying to. And if you don't get a good enough grade on any of those exams, you aren't accepted and have to wait an entire year to try again. Doesn't matter if you did every single extracurricular that was possible at your school, spent every single weekend volunteering, you were in the church choir, and you did really well in your classes. Doesn't matter. If you don't pass those exams, you aren't going to go to college. Jimena had been coming to Melel since she was 11 years old. Her older sisters participated in our weekend workshops, and as many younger siblings tend to do, she followed along. And when her sisters aged out, she stayed because she liked the community that she found there. My first summer in Mexico, Jimena had just finished high school, and she was so excited about going to college. But she didn't get into any of the universities because she didn't pass the entrance exams. So she had been judged unworthy by every school that she had applied to. Can you imagine how she felt? She had fantastic grades in high school. She was passionate about school, really wanted to continue learning. And she would have to wait an entire year before starting college, before even applying again. And she'd have to get a job, she'd maybe get a boyfriend, take on more work at home, and she would probably feel like the same thing would happen the next year, that she would apply and again would be rejected. So she began to question whether she was good enough for college. Maybe she wasn't as smart as she thought. Maybe her schools weren't as good as she thought they were. And as far as the odds go, it was pretty likely that she wasn't going to apply the next year. Knowing all this, she came to Melel looking for guidance. And she was met with a ton of emotional support, but also ideas. One of my coworkers told her about the university that he attended in northern Mexico, in a state called Sinaloa. This university didn't have an entrance exam, one of the few in the country. They valued grades in high school extracurriculars and essay writing, not test taking. My coworker helped her with the application and the entrance requirements, and lo and behold, she was accepted to this university in Sinaloa. She began to see her worth growing again. Next, my coworker helped her find and apply for 4 separate scholarships that would pay her tuition, her room and board, her transportation to and from school, because getting from Chiapas to Sinaloa is not cheap. And there was a 4th scholarship that would give her a small living stipend so that she could buy new shoes when she needed them, or books or notebooks for school. And Jimena comes from a family with very limited resources. If she had received just 3 of those 4 scholarships, she would not have been able to even consider going to college. Luckily, she was awarded all 4 scholarships. And again, we see her self-worth growing. Next came what turned out to be the second hardest part of Jimena's journey, convincing her parents that they should let her go away to school. This school is a 40-hour bus ride away from Chiapas. 40 hours. Jimena had never even traveled outside of Chiapas, let alone traveled alone. She had never lived anywhere aside from the family the house where she grew up with her family. And it's expensive to live so far away. You can't come home on the weekends when it takes you 40 hours to get back. And when I was looking at colleges, 2 hours away was too far. You know, my mom especially did not like that I went 2 hours away. Can you imagine letting your daughter go 40 hours away for school? But luckily, my coworker who went to that university still knew professors there. So he called them up and had her parents talk to these professors. He even knew somebody in the town who would come and pick her up from the bus stop and take her to the university. So finally, her parents, after a little bit of convincing, her parents said, yes, we support you. You can go to college. Lastly came the hardest part. Convincing Jimena that she should go so far away. And 40 hours, like I said, it's pretty far away. And she was really hesitant. 2 weeks before classes were set to start, she still hadn't decided if she was going or not. Yet again, she was challenged to evaluate herself. Jimena still didn't know if she was strong enough, good enough, to go to college so far away. What if she got there and the other schools had been right, and she wasn't ready for college yet? Jimena came to Noel with her bus ticket in hand, unsure if traveling so far away was such a good idea. She made her rounds, talking to all of my coworkers at Noel, asking each one their opinion and for their advice. Should I go so far away? What do you think? And she sat down with every single coworker. She sat down with Liz, and then she sat down with Joselito, and then the director, Jenny, and people that she had known for her entire life, for the past 8 years, who had been there and grown with her and developed relationships. And towards the end of the day, she'd made her rounds, and she got to me. And I'd only been at Noel for 3 months. Why did she want to speak to me? She barely knew me. We hadn't yet had time to develop a relationship. And my Spanish accent was honestly pretty horrible. I don't even know if she understood me when I talked. And I am lucky that both of my parents, as well as my sister, went to college and have master's degrees. So I was not a first-generation college student. What advice could I possibly give this first-generation college student from a low-income family in southern Mexico? What did we have in common? I wasn't worried about talking to her per se, but I was worried about having the words and advice that she needed to hear. Finally we sat down, and Jimena looked at me with tears in her eyes and asked, what is it like to live far from home? Well, yeah, of course I can talk to you about that. It takes me 3 planes to get home. Of course I can talk to you about what it's like to live far away. And so I told her the truth. It would be hard. And sometimes she would miss her family so much that it would hurt. And she would feel alone, and she would feel weak. And she would feel like she wasn't strong enough to go on. But it would be one of the most important things she could do in her life. She would learn to be independent, and she would make new friends. Learn to appreciate another part of her country, because even the food is different in Sinaloa from Chiapas. She would learn to travel so that someday maybe she could travel to another country, and she would come home stronger than ever. She would come home knowing that she had the skills and the strength to do whatever she put her mind to. 2 weeks later, Jimena was on a northbound bus to start her first semester of college. But how incredible was it that this young 18-year-old girl could see what we had in common when I couldn't? Jimena taught me that we are all so much more similar than we are different. All of us have lost our dignity at one point in time. We've all missed that promotion or not been hired by the job we wanted. All of us have felt like we aren't strong enough at one point or another. And all of us can find a way that we can connect to others if we just look hard enough. Without the years of support and encouragement that Jimena received at Noel, without the work from my coworkers that helped her to see her own self-worth, I am positive that she would not have had the courage to leave home and go so far away in search of her dreams. So, what does it take to break the cycles of poverty in southern Mexico? It takes one courageous 18-year-old girl who has never left her state, 3 15-hour bus rides through 12 states, 3 time zones, and 60 degrees of air temperature change, to a university in northern Mexico. It takes years of support and mentorship from strong women, and it takes dedicated educators who are willing to take phone calls at midnight to help find plane tickets, and hours of advice about living in a new place and dealing with homesickness, as well as help researching scholarships. Breaking the cycles of poverty takes a community of encouragement, trust, a strong sense of self-worth, and something like 100 hugs goodbye. This is the life-changing work that Melel Jokobal does, and in turn, what Global Ministries and this church does all over the world. My favorite scripture is Micah 6:8. I'm sure you've heard it. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God? I would change it just a tiny bit. I would say, so, what does the Lord require of us but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly by allowing ourselves to see ourselves the way Jesus sees us, as shepherds and women who have lost something important and rejoice in rediscovering their dignity. Please join me in prayer. Creator God, we thank you for teaching us about love, for teaching us to love our neighbor and to love ourselves. Please continue to remind us to celebrate when we find what has been lost. Help us to encourage our neighbors to see their own self-worth so that they might remind us of our self-worth when we seem to have lost it. Thank you today and always for giving us our dignity and for giving us the tools to restore it. In your name we pray,